I'm 94 years old. I've made $150 billion, and I've made every mistake you can make with money. People think I've been perfect, that I've never lost money, that I've never made a stupid decision. That is nonsense. I've lost billions. I've wasted decades. I've ignored obvious opportunities because I was stubborn or scared or stupid. The difference between me and most people? I made my mistakes early and learned from them. Most people make the same mistakes over and over until they're 70 years old and broke. I'm going to tell you the 5 things I will never do with money again. Things that cost me billions. Things that wasted years of my life. Things I see people doing right now that make me want to scream because I know exactly how it ends. These are not theories. These are scars. And if you're smart, you'll learn from my scars instead of getting your own. Hit the like button if you're ready to learn what a 94-year-old billionaire regrets. I only share this with people who want the truth, not fairy tales. Before we get into this, do me a favor. Drop a comment right now and tell me where you're watching from. I want to know who's here. City, state, country, just let me know. Here's why smart people stay poor even when they learn the right principles. Most people think knowledge is enough. They read books, they watch videos, they understand compounding, value investing, patience. Then they do the opposite. That is not stupidity. That is human nature. We are wired to make bad decisions with money. Fear, greed, ego, social pressure. These things override everything we know. I have an IQ of 150. I studied under Benjamin Graham. I had every advantage, and I still made catastrophic mistakes that cost me billions and decades. You don't need to be smarter than me. You just need to be less stupid than I was, and the way to be less stupid is to know exactly what not to do. I'll show you the 5 mistakes I made that I will never make again. Mistakes that most people are making right now. The first mistake cost me $200 billion. Not millions, billions with a B. Let's start. Mistake number 1. I wasted time on bad businesses. I spent the first 20 years of my career buying cheap garbage. Textile mills, department stores, trading stamps, companies that were dying slowly but selling for less than the cash in their bank accounts. I thought I was being smart. I was being stupid. This is the mistake that cost me the most money. Not losing money, wasting time. Because time is the most valuable asset you have. And I wasted 20 years of compounding on businesses that were going nowhere. The problem with buying cheap garbage is that it looks smart. You buy $1 for 50 cents. That sounds like genius, right? Wrong. Here's what people don't understand. A bad business stays bad. You can buy it cheap, but it doesn't get better. It just dies slowly while you watch. I learned this from Ben Graham. He taught me to buy stocks selling for less than their liquidation value, buy companies for less than the cash and assets, hold until the market realizes the value, sell, repeat. It worked in the 1930s and 1940s when Graham was doing it. The market was full of companies selling for less than cash because of the Depression. You could buy something for 50 cents, wait a year, sell it for $1, make 100% return. But by the 1960s, that game was over. The easy money had been made. The companies left selling for less than liquidation value were garbage for a reason. They were dying. I bought them anyway. Because that's what I learned. That's what felt safe. That's what Ben Graham taught me. Let me tell you about Berkshire Hathaway. This is the mistake that named my company. 1962. I'm 32 years old. Berkshire Hathaway is a textile mill in New England. Dying industry, losing money every year. But the stock is trading at $8 per share, and the company has $10 per share in working capital. I'm buying a dollar for 80 cents. Sounds smart. I buy control of the company. I'm going to liquidate it, sell the assets, make 25% return, move on to the next one. That was my plan. But I get into an argument with the CEO, Seabury Stanton. He offered to buy my shares back at $11.50. I said yes. Then he sends me an offer for $11.375, 18 3/8 cents less than we agreed. I got angry. I'm telling you this because it's important. I made a business decision based on emotion. That is always expensive. Instead of selling to him, I bought more shares. I took control of the company. I fired Seabury Stanton. I won the argument, and I lost billions of dollars. Here's what happened. I owned a textile mill, a dying textile mill. I spent 20 years trying to make it work. I put in capital. I hired good people. I improved operations, and it lost money almost every year. By 1985, I finally shut it down. 23 years wasted on a business that never should have been bought in the first place. Charlie Munger told me in 1965, "Stop buying these terrible businesses. Buy great businesses at fair prices, not terrible businesses at cheap prices." I didn't listen. I was stubborn. I thought I could fix it. I thought I was smarter than the market. Here's the arithmetic of my mistake. If I had taken the money I invested in Berkshire Hathaway's textile operations, approximately $20 million over 20 years, and instead bought Coca-Cola or See's Candies or any quality business, it would have compounded at 15 to 20% per year. $20 million compounding at 15% for 20 years becomes $327 million. At 20%, it becomes $766 million. Instead, I got zero. Actually, less than zero. I lost money on the textile operations. The only thing that saved Berkshire was that I used the cash flow, when there was any, to buy other businesses. Insurance companies. Good businesses. But I wasted 20 years and billions in potential returns trying to fix something that couldn't be fixed. That is the cost of buying cheap garbage. Not the money you lose, the time you waste. Let me show you the math on bad businesses versus good businesses. Bad business. You buy for $1 million. It earns $50,000 per year, 5% return. That's cheap. But the business is declining. Every year the earnings drop 5% because the industry is dying. Year 1, earn $50,000. Year 10, earn $30,000. Year 20, earn $18,000. Year 30, company is dead, worth $0. Total earnings over 30 years, $962,000. You invested $1 million. You lost money. Good business. You pay $2 million. Earnings are $100,000 per year, 5% return. Same starting yield. But the business grows 10% per year because it has competitive advantages. Year 1, earn $100,000. Year 10, earn $236,000. Year 20, earn $673,000. Year 30, earn $1.9 million per year. Total earnings over 30 years, $16.4 million. You invested $2 million. You made 8 times your money just from the earnings, plus the business is now worth $20 million if you want to sell it. Same starting yield, different trajectory. The good business was more expensive, but made you rich. The cheap business looked like a bargain, but made you poor. That is why I will never buy cheap garbage again. The time you waste on a bad business is time you can't get back. And time is the most valuable input into compounding. 1972. Charlie finally convinced me to stop buying garbage. We bought See's candies for $25 million. I thought it was expensive. The company was only earning $5 million per year in pre-tax profit. That's a P/E of 5 times, normal for me. But this was a candy company, not a value stock. It made me uncomfortable. Charlie said, "This business has pricing power. They can raise prices every year and people keep buying. It will compound." He was right. See's has generated over $2.5 billion in cumulative pre-tax profit over 53 years. That $25 million investment has created over $50 billion in value when you include all the businesses we bought with the cash See's generated. Same 53 years, I owned Berkshire's textile operations. Different result. See's made billions. Textiles lost money. The difference? See's was a good business. It got better every year. Textiles was a bad business. It got worse every year. I will never waste time on a bad business again. I don't care how cheap it looks. If the business isn't getting better, I'm not interested. Charlie taught me. It's better to buy a wonderful business at a fair price than a fair business at a wonderful price. I spent 20 years proving him right by doing the opposite. Time is not renewable. When you waste it on a bad business, you lose the compounding you could have had in a good business. That opportunity cost is usually bigger than any money you actually lose. Buy quality, pay fair prices, let time do the work. That is how you get rich. But I made another mistake that cost me even more than buying bad businesses. The second mistake cost me $100 billion. Mistake number 2. I didn't buy enough of the best businesses. I bought Coca-Cola in 1988. I paid $1.3 billion for 6.2% of the company. Today, it's worth $25 billion plus another $8 billion in dividends. One of my best investments ever. Here's my mistake. I should have bought 20% of the company. I had the money. The business was obvious. I just didn't buy enough. That mistake cost me $75 billion. Same business, same time period. I just didn't bet big enough when I knew I was right. The problem is that most people, including me for too many years, treat every investment the same size. They diversify. They buy a little of this, a little of that. They think they're being safe. That is not safe. That is expensive. When you find something obvious, truly obvious, not hopeful, you should bet big, not reckless. Big. I found a few obvious things in my career. Coca-Cola in 1988, American Express in 1964, GEICO in 1976, Apple in 2016. Maybe 10 total opportunities in 83 years where the business was so good and the price was so reasonable that you couldn't lose. And on most of them, I didn't buy enough. Let me tell you about Apple. This is recent, so the pain is fresh. 2016, Apple is trading at $25 per share, split adjusted. The company is earning $9 billion per quarter. That's $36 billion per year. The whole company is valued at $600 billion. That's a P/E of 16.7 times. But here's what people missed. Apple had $237 billion in cash. Subtract the cash, and you're buying the business for $363 billion. That's a PE of 10 times on a business growing earnings 15% per year with the strongest brand in the world and an ecosystem that locks in customers forever. I saw it. I bought it. We spent $36 billion building a position. Here's my mistake. I should have spent $100 billion, maybe more, because this was obvious. The business was incredible. The price was cheap. The moat was unbreakable. Our Apple position is worth $175 billion today. We made $139 billion in profit. If I had bought $100 billion instead of $36 billion, we would have made $386 billion. I left $247 billion on the table because I didn't bet big enough on something that was obvious. Why didn't I buy more? Partly because of old habits. I was trained by Ben Graham to diversify, to never put too much in one position, to spread risk. But there's a difference between risk and uncertainty. Risk is when you don't know what's going to happen. Uncertainty is when you don't know the exact outcome, but you know the range of outcomes is good. Apple in 2016 was uncertain. I didn't know if they'd sell 200 million iPhones or 220 million. But it wasn't risky. The business was so strong and the price was so cheap that almost any reasonable outcome made money. When you have uncertainty but not risk, you bet big. I didn't. That mistake cost me $250 billion. Let me show you the math on bet sizing. Investor A finds 10 investment opportunities. He puts 10% of his money in each one. 5 of them lose 50%. 3 of them make 50%. 2 of them make 500%. Starting with $1 million. Textile, 5 positions. $50,000 to $25,000 each equals $125,000. 3 positions. $50,000 to $75,000 each equals $225,000. 2 positions. $50,000 to $300,000 each equals $600,000. Total, $950,000. He lost money, even though 2 of his picks were home runs, because he didn't bet big on the home runs. Investor B finds the same opportunities, but he can tell which ones are obvious and which ones are speculative. He puts 40% in the 2 obvious home runs. He puts 5% in each of the others, starting with $1 million. 5 positions, $25,000 to $12,500 each equals $62,500. 3 positions, $25,000 to $37,500 each equals $112,500. 2 positions, $200,000 to $1 million. $200,000 each equals $2,400,000. Total, $2,575,000. He more than doubled his money. Same opportunities, different bet sizing. That is the power of concentration when you're right, and the cost of diversification when you have an obvious opportunity. 1964, American Express had the salad oil scandal. A subsidiary of Amex guaranteed loans for a commodities dealer. The dealer was fraud. He had tanks full of seawater, not soybean oil. The tanks were empty. The loans couldn't be repaid. American Express's stock fell 50%. Everyone thought the company was finished. The losses could be $150 million. Amex only had $280 million in equity. I went to restaurants and stores. I watched people use American Express cards and traveler's checks. The salad oil scandal didn't matter to customers. They still trusted Amex. The brand was fine. I put 40% of my partnership's assets into American Express. 40% in one stock. Ben Graham would have killed me. That was not diversification. The stock tripled in 2 years. That single investment made my career. It took me from a good investor to a rich investor. If I had put 10% in Amex like a prudent, diversified portfolio, I would have made good money. By putting 40% in something I knew was right, I made life-changing money. That is the difference between rich and comfortable. When you find something obvious, you bet enough to make a difference. Diversification is protection against ignorance. If you don't know what you're doing, diversify. But if you know what you're doing, if you found a business so good and a price so cheap that you can't lose, concentration is how you get rich. I will never make the mistake of underbetting again. When I find something obvious, I'm buying as much as I can. But there's a third mistake that cost me even more than underbetting. This one cost me relationships, time, and billions of dollars. Mistake number 3. I tried to change people who didn't want to change. I wasted years trying to convince people to do the right thing with their money. Partners who wanted to trade instead of invest. Managers who wanted to spend instead of save. Family members who wanted to consume instead of compound. I failed every single time, and I lost years trying. You cannot change people who don't want to change. That is the lesson I learned too. Late. The problem with being right is that you think you can convince other people to be right too. You think if you just explain it clearly enough, show them the math, prove it with examples, they'll understand. They won't. Not because they can't understand, because they don't want to. Most people don't want to be rich. They want to look rich. They don't want to be disciplined. They want to feel free. They don't want to wait. They want it now. And no amount of evidence will change that, because it's not about evidence. It's about what they want. I'm not going to name this person, but I'll tell you the story. 1980s. I had a partner in a business deal. Smart guy. Made $500,000 a year from various ventures. Should have been wealthy. He spent every penny. Big house, nice cars, country clubs, vacations, private schools for the kids. He looked successful, but he had no wealth. 0 investments, no savings, nothing compounding. I tried to help him. I showed him the math. I said, take $100,000 per year and invest it. In 20 years at 10% returns, you'll have $6.3 million. You can still spend $400,000 per year. That's plenty. He agreed, said it made sense, promised to start. He never did. I tried again, showed him different scenarios, explained opportunity cost, introduced him to good advisors. Nothing. This went on for years. I kept trying because I cared about him, and I couldn't understand why someone so smart would refuse to do something so obvious. Then he had a health crisis, heart attack at 52, had to stop working. His income dropped to $100,000 per year from disability insurance. He had nothing saved. His lifestyle cost $400,000 per year. He had to sell the house, pull the kids from private school, liquidate everything. At 55, he was broke. living in a rental, working part-time because he had to, not because he wanted to. I saw him last year. He's 68 now, still working, still broke, still spending everything he earns. I wasted a decade trying to change him. I thought if I just explained it better, showed him more examples, he'd get it. He got it. He just didn't want it. He wanted the lifestyle more than he wanted the wealth. That was his choice, and it took me too long to realize that I couldn't make his choice for him. Let me tell you about someone who did want to change. One of my executives came to me in the 1990s, said he was making $200,000 per year, but spending $180,000, only saving $20,000. Wanted to do better, but didn't know how. I gave him the same advice. Live on $100,000, invest the rest, let it compound. He did it, moved to a smaller house, drove older cars, cut the expensive habits. 25 years later, he retired with $8 million, lives on $320,000 per year from his investments. Never has to work again. Same advice. Different person, different result. The difference? The second guy wanted to change. The first guy wanted me to convince him to want to change. You can't do that. Let me show you the cost of trying to change people who won't change. Time spent, 10 years trying to convince one person to invest instead of spend. Result, 0. They didn't change. They ended up broke anyway. Opportunity cost? If I had spent those 10 years focused on people who did want help, people who were ready to change, I could have helped 100 people build wealth. 100 people times $1 million average wealth created equals $100 million in wealth I could have helped create. Instead, I helped nobody because I was focused on the wrong person. That is the cost of trying to change people who don't want to change, not just your time. The opportunity cost of helping people who do want help. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And you shouldn't waste your time trying. Some people want to be rich. Some people want to look rich. The second group is much larger. Your job is not to convert the second group into the first group. Your job is to find the first group and help them. I will never again waste time trying to convince people who don't want to be convinced. Life is too short. And there are too many people who do want help. But the fourth mistake might be the most painful because it wasn't about money. It was about time. Mistake number 4. I sacrificed relationships for money I didn't need. I missed my children's plays. I missed family dinners. I missed moments that don't come back because I was working on deals that didn't matter. I made $150 billion. But I can't buy back a single day with my kids when they were young. That is the mistake that haunts me most at 94. The problem with chasing money is that there's never enough. You make $1 million, you want $10 million. You make $100 million, you want $1 billion. The goalpost moves, and while you're chasing it, life is happening. Your kids are growing up. Your spouse is getting older. Your friends are there, but you're not. And you tell yourself, I'll make time after this deal, after I hit this number, after I retire. But the deal never ends. The number keeps moving, and retirement keeps getting pushed back. I made this mistake for decades. I was so focused on building wealth that I forgot to build a life. My first wife, Susie, left me in 1977, not divorced, separated. She moved to San Francisco to pursue her singing career. People thought it was about another man or about money or about something dramatic. It wasn't. She left because I was never there. Even when I was physically present, I was thinking about businesses, about investments, about the next opportunity. I chose investments over intimacy. I chose compounding over connection. I chose the office over home. She stayed married to me. We remained friends. She even arranged for Astrid, my current wife, to take care of me after she left because she knew I couldn't take care of myself. But she left, and I don't blame her. I wouldn't have wanted to live with me either. I was worth $500 million when she left. That money didn't matter. What mattered was the 30 years of marriage where I was absent even when I was present. Here's the arithmetic that doesn't work. You trade time for money early in life, hoping you can trade money for time later in life. But time is not for sale. Your child's 5th birthday happens once. Your daughter's high school graduation happens once. Your father's last years happen once. You can make more money. You cannot make more time. I was worth $100 million by the time my kids were teenagers. I had enough money to never work again. But I kept working. I kept chasing the next billion. Why? Because I was good at it. Because I enjoyed it. Because I told myself the money would matter for my family. But what my family needed wasn't more money. They needed me. Present, engaged, there. I gave them wealth. They wanted time. Those are not the same thing. My friend Bill Gates learned this faster than I did. He retired from Microsoft at 53, still young enough to spend real time with his family, still healthy enough to travel, to learn, to be present. He spent his 50s and 60s with his children, went to their events, was present for their milestones, built relationships that money can't buy. I spent my 50s and 60s building more wealth I didn't need, chasing deals that didn't matter, working when I should have been living. Bill got it right. I got it wrong. There is a number, a real number, where you have enough money. After that number, every dollar you make costs you something more valuable, time. For me, that number was probably $10 million, maybe $100 million. After that, I was just keeping score. The money didn't change my life. I already had everything I needed. But I kept chasing it. And while I was chasing it, I lost things I could never get back. I will never make that mistake again. I'm 94 now. My kids are in their 60s. I can't get back their childhood. I can't get back my first wife's company. I can't get back the decades I spent optimizing for money instead of optimizing for life. The money is still here. The time is gone. That's the trade I made, and it was stupid. But the 5th mistake is the one I see everyone making right now, and it's the easiest one to avoid if you're willing to look stupid. Mistake number 5. I cared too much about looking smart. I passed on Google. I passed on Amazon. I passed on countless opportunities because I didn't understand the business model, and I was afraid to look stupid. I missed trillions, not billions, trillions, in returns because I cared more about my reputation as a value investor than I cared about making money. That is the tax you pay for ego. The problem with being known for something is that you become trapped by it. People knew me as a value investor. I bought cheap stocks based on Graham's principles. That was my brand. When the world changed, when technology companies with no assets and high P/E ratios became the best investments, I couldn't adapt. Not because I didn't understand them, because I was afraid to look wrong. If Warren Buffett buys a tech stock at 50 times earnings and it works, People say, see, even value investing works on tech. If it fails, people say Warren lost his touch, he abandoned his principles. So I didn't buy them. I passed. And I missed the biggest wealth creation in history. 1998. Jeff Bezos came to see me and Charlie. He wanted to explain Amazon's business model. He walked us through the vision, online retail, AWS, subscription services, logistics infrastructure. I didn't invest. Not because I thought he was wrong, because I didn't understand it well enough to explain it to my shareholders, and I was afraid of looking stupid. Amazon has gone up over 2,000 times since then. If I had invested $1 billion in 1998, it would be worth $2 trillion today. But I passed because I cared more about my reputation as someone who stays in my circle of competence than I cared about making money. That is the cost of ego. Same with Google. I met Larry and Sergey in the early 2000s. Brilliant guys. Obvious monopoly, network effects, unbeatable business model. Didn't invest. Too expensive on traditional metrics. Didn't fit my framework. Didn't want to explain it to shareholders. Google has gone up 50 times since then. Another $1 trillion I left on the table because I was afraid to look stupid. I finally learned this lesson with Apple in 2016, tech stock. Trading at a reasonable price but still expensive by Graham standards. Didn't fit my historical pattern. I bought it anyway, and people criticized me. Warren is buying tech stocks in his 80s. He's lost it. He doesn't understand technology. He's violating his own principles. I didn't care. The business was obvious. The moat was clear. The price was reasonable. I bought $36 billion worth. Best investment I ever made. Made $139 billion in profit so far. But here's the thing. I could have made that investment in 1998 when Apple was $5 per share, split adjusted. The business model was the same. The moat was the same. The only thing different was that I was more willing to look stupid at 86 than I was at 68. That 18 years of caring about my reputation cost me hundreds of billions. Let me show you the cost of ego. Opportunity A. Fits your historical pattern. Easy to explain. Shareholders will approve. Expected return 15% per year. Opportunity B. Doesn't fit your pattern. Hard to explain. Shareholders will question it. Expected return 30% per year. If you pick A because it protects your ego, here's what you miss. $1 billion at 15% for 20 years. $16.4 billion, $1 billion at 30% for 20 years? $190 billion. Difference, $173.6 billion. That's the tax on ego. I paid that tax on Google, Amazon, Netflix, Tesla, and dozens of other companies I passed on because I was afraid to look stupid. Your ego is expensive. The need to look smart, to be consistent, to protect your reputation, these things cost you opportunities. I'm not saying buy things you don't understand. I'm saying don't let your ego prevent you from understanding things. If something is obviously working, if a business is creating value, building a moat, compounding wealth, study it until you understand it. Don't pass just because it doesn't fit your framework. Your framework should serve you. You should not serve your framework. I will never again pass on an obvious opportunity because I'm afraid to look stupid. I'm 94. I don't care what people think anymore. I care about being right. I learned these lessons over 83 years of investing and 94 years of living. Let me tell you where I learned the most important one. My grandfather was a grocer in Omaha. Simple man, 8th grade education, ran a small grocery store through the Depression. He told me something when I was 10 years old. I've thought about it every day since. He said, "Warren, you can waste money and make more money. You can waste opportunities and find new opportunities, but you can't make more time. Spend it on things that compound." I didn't understand what he meant. I thought he was talking about investing. He wasn't. He was talking about life. Time spent with people who matter compounds into relationships. Time spent learning compounds into wisdom. Time spent creating value compounds into wealth. Time spent impressing people goes to zero. Time spent chasing money you don't need goes to zero. Time spent protecting your ego goes to zero. I wasted decades chasing money I didn't need and protecting a reputation that didn't matter. My grandfather understood something at 50 that I didn't understand until I was 80. Life itself compounds if you let it. Let me make this simple. Here are the 5 things I will never do with money again. 1. Waste time on bad businesses. Life is too short to fix things that can't be fixed. Buy quality. Let time work. 2. Underbet when I'm right. When you find something obvious, bet enough to make a difference. Diversification is protection against ignorance, not a strategy for wealth. 3. Try to change people who won't change. You can't save someone who doesn't want saving. Focus on people who want help. 4. Sacrifice relationships for money I don't need. There's a number where you have enough. After that, you're just keeping score while life passes by. 5. Let ego prevent me from understanding new opportunities. Your framework should serve you. Don't pass on obvious opportunities because they don't fit your historical pattern. These are not complicated lessons. A teenager could understand them. But I was 60, 70, 80 years old before I learned some of them. You don't have to wait that long. Here's your challenge. Look at what you're doing with your time and money right now. Ask yourself, am I wasting time on things that don't compound? Am I underbetting on obvious opportunities because I'm afraid? Am I trying to change people who don't want to change? Am I sacrificing relationships for money I don't need? Am I letting ego prevent me from learning? If the answer to any of these is yes, stop. Today, not tomorrow, today. I'm 94 years old. I've made $150 billion. And I'd trade half of it to get back one day with my kids when they were young. I'd trade a quarter of it to have learned these lessons 30 years earlier. But I can't trade it. The money is here. The time is gone. That's the deal I made. Don't make the same deal. The formula is right here. Spend time on quality businesses, quality people, quality experiences. Bet big when you're right. Accept that you can't change people. Know when you have enough. Check your ego at the door. Follow those rules, and you won't just be rich, you'll have lived. Those are not the same thing. And the second one matters more. Now, if you want more brutal honesty about money and life, timeless principles that actually work instead of get-rich-quick garbage, subscribe to this channel. We don't promise easy. We don't promise fast. We promise truth. And the truth is that I'm 94, and these are my regrets. Learn from them so they don't become yours.